Hi, everybody. My name is David Drake from LDJ Capital Family Office, and I'm calling you from New York. We're going to be talking about blockchain's role in the growth of esports CDN, content delivery networks. And as we get into the industry, I'd like to explain to you what prompted me to get excited about this space. Here we go. My dad became the oldest world champion in Counter-Strike in 2019. And today he's still the reigning champion and the oldest esports champion on the globe. Who would have guessed that that would have happened? And I'm getting catapulted into the world of esport as well as blockchain and streaming. Let's see if we can see this sizzle reel. He became the world champion in 2019. First time there ever was a category for senior citizens called Grace. And his team won the world championship, and that ended up becoming the oldest member on that team, making him the oldest world champion on the globe today in esports. So obviously, he was part of a team called Silver Snipers, and their air is where they won in Sweden in 2019 summer. Obviously, because of COVID, there wasn't one last year. And I started managing my dad end of 2019 and helping him out. We're making several movies, but obviously streaming is a big part of it. And that's why, CDN is the topic of today's conversation, where we can actually transfer features using and loading the internet content differently. And what's interesting is, I have a long history with blockchain. And blockchain would allow uniqueness and identification to not get interrupted by applying this technology, which makes sense, on a global basis with cutoffs and shutoffs. And you're seeing a kind of growth on online media here has doubled for Twitch and many other groups around the world. So we're seeing an extreme amount of pressure on the infrastructure, and this is one of the technologies that's going to relieve that pressure. Now, the esport industry is $24.9 billion in size, gigantic. And interestingly enough, when COVID came around into 2020, I was very close to put some money in and invest in esports companies around the world. And I saw the revenue dissipate even as much as 80 to 90%, because they've been making most of their money on live competitions, and the industry had to adjust. However, the streaming and online gaming, for layman terms, layman people, took off and exploded. Close to 75 billion hours been spent online for streaming and esports in 2020. Tremendous amount of hours online that's not going to streaming and linear TV. And that's a different story, where the linear TV industry is losing their audience because everybody's spending time on the raw authenticity that they can get from people streaming. And I think that's what is attracting about esport and streaming, that you get to see into somebody's living room or streaming room, and it's not scripted. It's authentic. They're right there, spending sometimes up to 12 to 18 hours a day in front of their streaming. Now, to handle that kind of big impact on the infrastructure, we have to find solutions like CDN to relieve that pressure and keep everybody playing in real time and efficiently. As far as esports are organized, there are many competitive gaming organizations, and these are the ecosystems that we're working on. And, we made a movement to create a league for senior citizens, people who are 50 and above, with Die Birdie specifically being the face of that league. Now, we're going to be streaming both on YouTube TV, Twitch, as well as decentralized platforms, allowing us to have more autonomy and control of the content. So that's what things that are happening in the industry that we're going to be having, Dad, Die Hard Birdie, be the face of and take a lead on. That he's not only bridging old and young, but he's also um, being very adept on technology, cutting edge cryptocurrency, cryptographic solutions, decentralized solutions, blockchain solutions. And we want him to incite you watching this and your family to pay it forward and show an interest to kids and grandkids, and vice versa, show an interest to your grandparents, and increase the communication, because during this year in 2020, during COVID, a lot of people got isolated. And to increase social networking, you would have to do it digitally. And you also have a lot of families that took a lot of pain from losses or strife or separation. And we see, Die Hard Birdie through esport and streaming, encouraging people to socially connect. I don't know if I've said this before, but one of the top 3 regrets on your deathbed, as I've read about this for decades, has always been that people wish to spend more time with their friends and loved ones. So we want to encourage the old and young generation to connect digitally and socially and emotionally heal through gaming and esports. And that's really the message that we're conveying with Die Hard Birdie and the work that we're doing in this space currently. And that's why we're so passionate about this. Now, the challenges in the esports industry have been, quite large, but it's also one of the more, technologically most advanced industries. And although we're seeing market fragmentation and transparency lacks, we are going to see issues. We're also seeing issues with, certain games are too violent. Call of Duty and Counter-Strike that might fall in place, for instance, is not acceptable in China. But League of Legends is, because it's not as realistic and violent. So you have those issues as well. And as well, some of the issues are also a lot of industries don't feel comfortable with the more violent games. So they don't enter the sponsorship arena of it. And consequently, we're still at the early stages of streaming and esport, even though the financial infrastructure in the US is far more advanced than the rest of the world. For instance, in 2020, Europe spent $22 billion investing into angel investments and venture capital investments, while the US has spent $122 billion. So the US is far more evolved with better infrastructure, training, distribution, engagement with investors, and consequently, we're seeing now investors in the US getting in with esport, and they're implementing governance and professional measures to operate like a startup or a venture capital driven business. And that is in the beginning of this year, next in 2021, that's going to see a lot of more evolve further. And we're going to see more and more of these companies going public, getting listed. And that's going to happen heavily end of 2021 and more so in 2022. So we're still in the early stage, which is exciting because there's so many more opportunities to evolve. And with CDN, we're talking about today, its technology is rushing ahead of what the mainstream is aware of. Now, let's talk about blockchain and why this is important. Now, the easiest way for me to say is that blockchain is a accounting software. You have, inputs and outputs. You get money coming in, money coming out. That's the ledger. And imagine you got 11,000 computers all around the world having the same ledger. Now, when a blockchain is recorded, it has to match with every computer in the world holding that blockchain. And consequently, it becomes immutable, impossible to change, because you would have to either blow up the world or control 51% of all the computers in the world, or more in some cases, to make a change to the existing blockchain. Because as you put that in and all computers agree on it, you go to the next transaction. You can't go back and change that. And that's why blockchains become so popular, because it gives you a public view, sometimes private, of course, like JP Morgan chain is private, but a public view on computers, what's happening with transactions. If you can match that transaction and account to a person's name, you can see what they've been doing with their money and crypto for, since they received it. Now, blockchain in that case allows us to be able to implement that with CDN. And let's go into discuss that a little more. So with blockchain, you will be able to add services and have a trustless network, because the blockchain itself automatically does trades between individuals and opportunities in the system. And by doing so, a lot of more services in the blockchain industry can be plugged into the system and expand on the speed as well as on the independence of each of these servers running the gaming cycle. Now, how blockchain have revolutionized esports and CDN is because, like I said before, it's a decentralized platform. So you could actually have 1,000 computers running the game in different parts of the world, and if one or two or three breaks, crashes, then and the system still reroutes to another computer, and the system just continues running. And this will, as you see, improve trust, level the playing field, allow everybody to have the same speed access, and then also have secure payments based on crypto that can be implemented into this, which is interesting because, now, you will be able to attach likes or applauds or donations to a blockchain or cryptocurrency that actually has a value. And that value can be translated into capital and vice versa. And it creates a loyalty program that allows you to potentially monetize your fan base. And that's what's exciting, right? You always want to monetize a fan base for a team or individual gamer, but it's very limited. They can see you on Instagram, they can see you on Facebook, they see you on Twitch, but to earn money, they have to spend it. And blockchain here will allow for new products and toolkits around the world to be able to plug in to the systems and allow you to earn even from DeFi. I've seen some DeFi esports solutions coming out where technically you're not investing in anything, you're just allocating some of your blockchain to a certain user, and in return, you get governance tokens, which in turn has a value as it trades. It's a liquidity solution. Now, as we go down this list here, there's quite a few advantages, and one of them is also independence and autonomy. God forbid you get cut off of YouTube, and like we just saw Donald Trump, he got banned from Instagram and Facebook for the next 2 weeks last week. So, by this platform, there'll be more autonomy and more control of what you can and cannot do yourself. And then here, of course, here's the loyalty incentive models that I was talking about before. So, there are revolutions in certain industries, specifically during COVID, that we've seen. I've been involved with blockchain and crypto since 2011. Part of it was I lobbied and helped SEC, FINRA, and the Congress in 2011 and 12 create the Jobs Act crowdfunding exemption. I set up the first meeting with the SEC in history about the crowdfunding exemption. We can raise $1 million and 70. Well, now it's up to $5 million. And that allowed advertising for you to reach your investors, which was forbidden according to the SEC Act of 1933 and 34. And because we lobbied and worked with SEC and FINRA for the last decade, we actually been in a position to understand how companies abroad, specifically esports company and blockchain company, can actually come in here and actually be able to work with capital being raised in the US. That has given me the insight into the blockchain world and the crypto world, and startups in general. Obviously, my family's been involved with private equity. We own real estate in New York. We do capital markets, venture capital, and angel investments. We made over 400 angel investments over the last 2 decades. And that's why, I'm in a great position to share this beautiful adventure with my father, the world champion, my heart birdie. So thank you for sharing this story. Feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm always very open to people who want to reach out. Just reference that you saw me here. And if now we're going to go over to any questions you might have, any questions you want to pose after seeing this. Thank you.